What are the scientifically proven strategies that we can start using today to strengthen the mind? By the end of this video, you will take away 3 evidence-based strategies that you can use to strengthen the mind by nurturing your mental well-being and happiness. In this video, we'll focus on how we can spend money to increase our happiness. How can we spend money in ways that can increase our happiness? Research shows that the way we spend money has a strong influence on our happiness. A survey of 632 people shows that spending money on others, like buying a gift or donating to a charity, increases our happiness much more than spending money on ourselves. In an experiment, people were divided into 2 groups. Group 1 was given either $5 or $20 to spend money on others, while Group 2 was given the same amount of money but they had to spend the money for themselves. At the end of each day, both groups were asked for their level of happiness. The results show that Group 1, that had to spend money on others, experienced significantly more happiness compared to the other group, Group 2, that had to spend money for themselves. Interestingly, another survey of 109 people showed that most of us wrongly think that spending money on ourselves would increase our happiness much more than spending money on others, which explains why most of us spend very little or so much less on others than for ourselves. But when we buy gifts for other people, we sometimes buy products or services that can be consumed together. So for example, when I buy lunch or dinner for a friend or a family, or when we buy tickets to a sporting event or concert or going to movies together or doing a bungee jumping together. Now, buying these experiences that can be consumed together could be more effective in increasing our happiness compared to just buying something for other people. One of the most memorable gifts that I've ever bought for someone was when I bought lunch for my wife's 21st birthday. It only had been a few days since we started going out, and it was her very first birthday that we were celebrating together as a couple, and it was her the biggest 21st birthday. And so I really wanted to impress her, so I decided to take her to the best restaurant in Australia, which at the time was key and probably still is now today. And it was our very first fine dining experience, and so we were very both nervous. And when we went to the restaurant, we could see the Opera House in front of us and the Harbour Bridge to our left. And the very first dish that came out was this really small plate of round cheese. And it was really beautifully round and shining kind of cheese. So I thought that I would just cut that in half because we're sharing everything. So I cut cheese in half. I put one half in my mouth, and I was completely embarrassed because it was actually a round butter that I cut in half, put it in my mouth, and I felt so embarrassed, and I had so much of a mixed emotions. And it was embarrassing, but it was really memorable in the sense that it was an amazing experience, to be surrounded by this beautiful scenery with, at the time, my girlfriend's 21st birthday. We were celebrating together in this best restaurant in Australia. So that has to be my most memorable gift that I've ever bought for someone. So when we give, a greater measure of happiness will be given to us. What's your most memorable gift that you've ever bought for someone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, so spending money on others increases our happiness, but can money buy long-lasting happiness? Research shows that the happiness that we feel when we spend money on ourselves repeatedly declines significantly and very quickly, but spending money on others produces longer-lasting happiness. In an experiment, people were divided into 2 groups, and both groups were given $25 where they had to spend $5 every day over 5 days. But Group 1 was asked to spend money for others, while Group 2 was asked to spend money for themselves. And their level of happiness was measured at the end of each day. The results show that both groups felt equally happy for the first 2 days, but from the third day until the fifth day, the second group, who had to spend money repeatedly on themselves, felt less happy compared to the first group where they had to spend money for others. So group 1 that was asked to spend money for others had experienced a long-lasting happiness compared to the second group who had to spend money for themselves. An important question about this research finding is how much of an impact did their level of spending with their own money have on the research finding? We can imagine that for both groups, their level of spending for themselves with their own money must be higher than the amount of money that they spend for others with their own money. So in the second group where they had to spend money for themselves, because they might have already spent a lot with their own money for themselves, that additional happiness that they gain by spending that $5 extra might be much less than the first group where they had to spend money on others, and because they're already spending much less on others, that additional $5 that they get from the experiment that they had to spend for others might have produced much higher happiness compared to the second group. When I went overseas for the first time after my baby was born, I went to Indonesia, and that was my very first trip to Indonesia. And because I couldn't fit shopping all into one day, I went shopping over a few days, and I mainly was looking for new toys to buy for my baby. I remember how happy I was, how fun it was to go shopping for these new toys for my newborn baby. And it certainly made me happy, and it was such a fun experience over the few days when I went shopping repeatedly for my newborn baby. So it is certainly more blessed to give than to receive. How will you spend money for others in the future to increase your happiness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Are there situations where spending money on others lead to more or less improvement in happiness? Research shows that spending money on others leads to much more improvement in happiness when we can clearly see the impact that our spending makes on the recipient, when our giving is entirely based on our choice, and when our giving makes us feel more connected to the recipient. In an experiment, people were divided into two groups. Group 1 was asked to describe 2 most recent experiences in which they spent money on another person or a cause that made them feel happy. Group 2 was asked to describe 2 recent experiences in which they spent money on another person or a cause that did not make them feel happy. Next, both groups were asked in terms of how much impact that they believed they made as a result of giving their money, how much of their giving was driven entirely by their choice rather than feeling forced to give or being pressured to give the money to another person or cause, and finally, how much they felt connected to the person that they gave money to or the cause that they supported. The results showed that Group 1 that was asked to describe the experiences of giving that made them feel happy felt greater sense of impact, choice, and social connection to the recipient of the money, compared to Group 2, who described the experiences of giving that did not make them feel happy. So knowing exactly how much impact the money you spend on another person or cause has been made, feeling that you've spent the money because you really care about the person or the cause rather than feeling pressured or forced to spend the money on others, and feeling connected, and that deep sense of connection to the person or the cause can further increase the amount of happiness that we feel as a result of spending money on others. In other words, when we really can't see where our money has been spent to benefit the person or the cause, when we feel like we feel pressured to give the money, and when we can't feel deeper sense of connection to the person or the cause after giving the money, we cannot extract the happiness by spending money on others. One question is whether spending money on another person or cause secretly without letting the recipient know that it was really you that spent the money for them can create a much more powerful or longer lasting happiness for you compared to when you spend the money for them in plain sight. Spending money on others in plain sight may create or increase your happiness in the short term, but it could be that when you know that you have helped someone in secret, could create a longer lasting and much more powerful increases in happiness. So when you spend money on another person or cause next time, know exactly what kind of impact your money makes on the recipient. Give as you have decided in your heart, not reluctantly or under pressure, and seek to really strengthen that relationship with the recipient or the cause or the charity. This will further increase your happiness as you spend money on others. Have you ever helped someone in secret? Share your thoughts in the comments below. So 3 key takeaways from this video are: first, spend more money on others than on yourself to strengthen the mind. Second, spend more money repeatedly on others than on yourself to increase your happiness. And third, when you spend money on others, look for perceived impact, choice, and social connection. These are the 3 scientifically proven strategies that you can start using today to strengthen the mind by nurturing your mental well-being and happiness by spending more money on others. I'm glad that you're here because you can now use scientific knowledge to strengthen your mind and to nurture your mental well-being. Subscribe to get more scientifically proven strategies to strengthen your mind.